Flight Center. And he still continues as the United States Science Team Leader, the U.S. Team Leader for the Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer flying on NASA's Aqua satellite. Dr. Spencer, I have absolutely no idea what any of that means. I don't have a clue what the Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer is, but I'm impressed.
Yeah, but at least you can pronounce radiometer.
Well, you know, I had to kind of take an educated guess at that one. So, well, anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, Dr. Spencer, you are, in addition to your responsibilities at the University of Alabama in Huntsville and with NASA, you're also a senior fellow with the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. And you had the opportunity last week to give testimony before a Senate subcommittee, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about that. That was the Senate Subcommittee on Environment and Public Works, and it was a hearing on global warming. So give us kind of the setup there. I mean, my guess is that going into that thing, a good number of the people on this panel were going to be committed to this hoax of man-caused global warming. So give us the setting and then rehearse for us the nature of the testimony that you gave to these senators.
Sure. Well, the Democrats, of course, are in charge of the Senate, so they're in charge of that committee. And Barbara Boxer is the chairman, and ranking member from the Republican side is Senator Vitter, and then also on the Republican side is Senator Jeff Sessions, who's from our state, Alabama. And also on the Democrat side was Senator Whitehouse, who became an important part of the hearing, it turns out.
Yes, in fact, I'll tell you. Dr. Spencer, I've got two sound bites from Senator Whitehouse I want to play, and I'll have you respond to those here in a few minutes. But anyway, go ahead with the setup and what the nature of your testimony was.
Okay, the title of the hearing was basically something like Climate Change, It's Happening Today. There were two panels, each with 5 experts, and there were actually more experts from like the insurance industry and from economists. There were only really 2 people, maybe only 1, myself, out of 10 people who were actual climate researchers. I would say I was the only climate researcher. And, of course, one panel, or the Democrat side, gave the view that mostly what they were talking about was severe weather is getting worse because of man-made global warming. And then our side talked about how the evidence isn't there for severe weather being worse because of global warming, no matter what is causing past warming. And even if it was, that the cost of doing anything about it, you couldn't change it because, you know, our influence, the U.S. influence, is just too small.
So let me ask for clarification. What I thought I heard you say is that the title of this committee hearing is global warming or something is occurring. It wasn't a question, is it occurring? It was the title of the hearing was it is occurring. Did I hear that right?
Right, and that's right, that it's happening now, and Barbara Boxer said, you know, all she has to do is look out in her backyard, and she can see it happening, which, of course, is ridiculous. And then basically this is what they have to do in order to gin up interest in global warming, is people really don't care if it's something in the far-off distant future, so they try to have to make it pertinent to today. And, of course, you know, if there's a big tornado or a big hurricane, it's the perfect time to try to scare people.
Well, in fact, Dr. Spencer, I've read some articles in the recent past about how actually severe weather events are at something of historic lows when it comes to tornadoes, when it comes to hurricanes that make land, at least in North America, that our numbers are down to where they were at comparable periods in the 19th century.
That's right for tornadoes and hurricanes. Tornadoes we've only been really monitoring since the 1950s, and there's been sort of a gradual decline in strong, moderate to strong tornadoes in the U.S. And for hurricanes, we did reach sort of a peak in 2005, but there's a lot of year-to-year and decade-to-decade variability. And then since 2005, we've gone a record-long period of time, 8 years we've gone now, without a major hurricane hitting the United States, which is the longest period on record for landfalling hurricanes. And, of course, that record goes back into the 1800s.
Now, this raises, severe questions about the whole anthropogenic global warming theory, because their theory is that with increased CO2 concentrations, you are going to have a spike in global temperatures. The Earth is going to burst into flames and be consumed. and you're going to have these extreme weather events. And yet, if you look at rising CO2 temperatures, that theory falls apart. I mean, rising CO2 concentrations, that whole theory falls apart.
Well, the main piece of evidence I showed in the hearing was a fairly recently published plot of temperatures reconstructed for the northern hemisphere that goes back 2,000 years. And it clearly shows three warm periods. One was around the time of Christ, it's called the Roman warm period. And then the next one was around 1000 A.D., and that's the medieval warm period. And then the current modern warming period, or warm period. We are warmer than we've been in the last few centuries. But, some of us think that this is just part of a natural cycle. Now, theoretically, I have to admit, there should be some warming from us adding CO2 to the atmosphere. I don't think we have any clue how much it is. And even if half of the warming we've seen, let's say in the last 50 years, is natural versus man-made, it makes a huge difference to any policy changes that we might be considering. But the other side, the Democrats, are basically going on the assumption that it's all man-made, which I think is very dubious from a scientific standpoint.
Well, and you indicated in your testimony, I believe, Dr. Spencer, that there has been no statistically significant warming in the last 15 years, despite rising concentrations of CO2.
Right. That's another thing, is that we've gone 15 years with little or no warming, and people on the other side will say, well, there's been other 15-year periods in the past when there hasn't been any warming. Well, that's very disingenuous, because this past 15 years is when the climate stove has supposedly been turned up the most. We've supposedly got the most amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. It should be heating up the most rapidly now, and it's stopped. So clearly there's something about the climate system that we don't understand, and I and some other scientists think it's just that the climate system doesn't care that much how much CO2 is in the atmosphere.
I want to play a couple of those sound bites that you alluded to, the role that Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island played. I just got the audio bites, but Dr. Spencer, I'm going to play his question, your answer. We got 2 bites, and I want to ask you to respond to the exchange that you had with him. Here is clip number 1, Senator Whitehouse bringing up, in my estimation, a completely and utterly irrelevant question. Let's listen.
Let me first ask a kind of unrelated question, Doctor. Do you believe that the theory of creation actually has a much better scientific basis than the theory of evolution?
And why are we going in this direction?
Because it's something you've said, and I just wanted to see if you still believe it.
I believe that evolutionary theory is mostly religion. It is naturalistic, but my faith is not strong enough to believe that everything happened by accident. I mean, there's a lot of work out there that's shown that you cannot statistically combine all of the elements that are contained in a DNA molecule by chance over however many billions of years you want to invoke, or over how much known universe there is with all of the matter in it. So what I'm saying is some areas of science deal a lot more with faith than with known science, and so I'm open to alternative explanations.
It struck me there that he admitted, Dr. Spencer, that his question was unrelated. It had absolutely nothing to do with the purpose or the nature of that hearing. One more exchange between you and Senator Whitehouse, and then I'd ask you to give us your take on that. Let's listen.
Do you still believe that the theory of creation actually has a much better scientific basis than the theory of evolution, to be specific?
I think I could be put into a debate with someone on the other side, and I think I could give more science supporting that life is created than they could support with evidence that life evolved through natural random processes. So yes.
Talking here with Dr. Roy Spencer, who is a principal research scientist at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. He's a senior scientist for climate studies with NASA, or has been. Dr. Spencer, give me your reaction to that exchange with Senator Whitehouse.
Well, first of all, let me say that's the first I've heard it since I uttered those words. I usually, whenever I'm on TV or radio, I usually don't go back to critique my performance. So that's the first time I heard what I said. I would say that considering that came totally out of left field, I did pretty well, I think.
Now, even he admitted that it was unrelated. I mean, did it kind of take you off guard that he would bring something in that was completely extraneous to the nature of the hearing?
No, I've sort of gotten used to it. I've testified in Congress on a number of occasions, and I've learned that one of their tactics, of the opposing side's tactics, is to discredit you in the eyes of their constituents. So basically, all you have to do is, imply that so-and-so is some wacko Bible-believing creationist, and then you've got automatically, millions of people that say, "Oh yeah, well, we can't believe him." So they're just pandering to their base when they do that.
Our guest has been Dr. Roy Spencer, talking about his testimony before a Senate subcommittee on the global warming issue last week. Dr. Spencer is a principal research scientist at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. He is also the U.S. science team leader for the Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer, which is on NASA's Aqua satellite. Also, he serves as a senior fellow with the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. Dr. Spencer, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend some of it with us. Thank you.
And thanks for having me on.
Dr. Roy Spencer with the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. We frequently had Cal Beisner, who was the national spokesman for that organization, as a guest on this program. We'll be back with your phone calls and more. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Be right back.